Question 3 of the comparing and scaling test. All right, so you're going to have to complete the rate table. And they first give you that 5 peppers cost $2.25. So with that, the easiest thing we can do is find out how much it costs for 1 pepper. And the best way to do that is to set up a proportion to find the unit rate. Now you already set up proportions for the second question, so you're going to use a similar strategy. And remember, when you set up your proportion, you have your 1 unit on the top for both sides and your 1 unit on the bottom for both sides. And you already have 3 values: the cost, the number of peppers, and the number of peppers for the unit rate. So you're going to need to find the cost for that 1 pepper. And after you've done that, you can use that cost for 1 pepper, that unit rate, to fill in these next costs for peppers. And you can also use a proportion to find the rest of these values. So how many peppers could you buy for $20? Well, again, you're going to need to set up a proportion. You can either use your original rate on one side, or you can use your unit rate for one side of the proportion. And notice I was asking for how many peppers for $20. Well, when you fill in your rate table, you're going to notice that there is no $20 on your rate table. And also, do not get this $20 mixed up with this 20 up here. The 20 up here is the number of peppers, not the amount of dollars. So set up your proportion, make sure you put your units in the right spot, and you'll be able to solve for the $20. Now describe what the graph of this data would look like and name a point on the graph. Well, the graph is going to be based on the information you have in your table. Well, if we look at these values, the number of peppers are increasing, and as they increase, what do you notice about the cost? Is the cost increasing too? Is it decreasing? What's happening? What do you think? And then when they say name a point on the graph, again, you use your table. So your points on the graph are going to be your points on the table. And remember, points on a graph are coordinate pairs. So for example, you already have a coordinate pair right here, so that could work. Write an equation that relates the number of peppers N and the cost C. While looking over the test, I noticed that there were a lot of people that said cost equals how much their unit rate was, and then N equals how much the unit rate was. Now, in an equation, you have one equal sign, and you have your variables on opposite sides. But what this means right now, C equals N, is that cost is equal to number of peppers. But this isn't correct. This is not the correct equation for this table. Because as you know, when you fill out the rate table, 1 pepper is not equal to 1 cent when you fill this portion in. You're not going to have 1 cent here. So you're going to need to figure out the relationship between cost and number of peppers. So again, with setting up your equation, make sure you have one equal sign. Make sure you find a relationship between your cost and number of peppers. And try to figure out, what are you doing to this 1 pepper to get the cost? Now, what is the constant proportionality, and how do you know? What we've used is the constant proportionality is when we have our equation, usually the constant proportionality is a number that's being multiplied to one of the variables. And that is usually our unit rate. Now you can also use the constant proportionality to find the difference between these values up here. As the pepper increases by 1, how much is the cost increasing by? And notice how the cost increases consistently by the same amount. So that could be one way of helping describe how you know what the constant proportionality is.